Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday. Extended schedule, you know what that means? I get to teach more today than normal. Okay. All right. So listen, some of this is just gonna be some stories today. Not a lot of notes, not a ton of notes. Okay. So we did this yesterday. Okay. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, or the non-aggression pact between the Soviet Union and Germany, right? And how this really surprised people, right? That these two enemies would agree on this, okay? But we know that a non-aggression pact with Hitler means he's going to attack you, okay? So I want to tell a little bit of a story. When I was in graduate school, when you look at Poland, guys, they're going to divide this country in half, okay? Of course, the capital of Poland is Warsaw. And so, guys, September 1st, okay, so this is 9/1/39, okay, the Germans invade, okay, they invade Poland, all right. 2 weeks later, roughly 2 weeks later, on 9/17/39, the Soviet Union will invade Poland, or Poland, right? Now, let me ask you a question. Did you know there is a significant number of Jews living in Poland? Like over 3 million, way more than lived in Germany. So in September of 39, if you were Jewish and you were living in Poland, do you think you had heard about some of the stories about the treatment of Jews in Germany? Okay, so when they invade, are you afraid? As you should be, right? So as the Germans come in, one of the things when you learn about the Holocaust, guys, is that the German infantry did not deal with the Jewish problem. Okay, so the German infantry's job is to defeat enemy troops. Okay, there's a group that comes in behind the troops called the Einsatzgruppen. The Einsatzgruppen is the one that starts to deal with the Jewish problem. And as they get into Poland, guys, there's a lot of Jews to deal with. Okay, so one of the first methods they will use is what's the word I'm looking for? Ghettos. They will create ghettos where they will send Jews into cities and like quarantine them and keep them in one place till they figure out what to do with them. In other places, the Einsatzgruppen will just shoot them. Okay, dig mass graves and shoot them. As the Holocaust, evolves over time, guys, if you are a German soldier, and you are tasked with killing other human beings like this, shooting them, physically shooting them, you know this is going to have an impact on your soldier's psyche at some point, right? I mean, we got any deer hunters in here? So you don't have any problem killing Bambi?
Bambi's dad.
Huh?
Bambi's dad.
Bambi's dad? Yeah. So let me just propose this to you. Let's say I gathered 500 deer and I put them in a quarantine out at the stadium. Big fence where they can't jump out. And I'm going to give you a gun. And I want you to shoot all 500 of them. I don't know. I couldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, that would affect me psychologically, okay? Now, the Germans have been, brainwashed to believe that the Jews are less than human. You understand? Like, they are parasites. They are like rodents, like rats, okay? And nobody generally has a problem killing a rat, okay? But maybe you do, okay? So I want to tell a story that the world did not know about until the Cold War ended. And this story was written in 1993. And it's a story about what happened to a town just northwest of Warsaw in 1939. Okay, it's a town called Genwabe. This small town is going to be invaded, as all of Poland will be invaded. Now, the Poles knew the Germans were coming. So 90% of the Polish forces, defenses, will be on the Western Front. Only 10% of the Polish forces will be on the Eastern Front. So even though the Soviets invade 2 weeks later, they're going to move much more quickly than the Germans will. Okay? In fact, the Soviets go further than they're supposed to. Now, they don't take Warsaw, but in north of Warsaw, Soviet troops will reach this town of Genwabe before the Nazis get there. Now, the thing that's unique about this town, it's got about 3,000 people. And what's unique is about half of them are Jewish, and the other half are Polish. Now, Poles generally are of what religion? Generally Catholic. Okay? Now, this isn't a story about Catholics, guys. This is a story about human beings. Okay? This could happen to anybody. So when the Russian troops showed up in this town, who do you think was really relieved that it was the communists and not the Nazis? The Jews were really relieved. They're like, because they heard about the invasion, you understand. They're like, oh, what are we going to do? You know, hopefully it won't be bad, you know. So when the Russians, the communists showed up in this town, the Jews were very accommodating. They were like, oh, we're glad it's you. What can we do to help you while you're invading our country? So the Poles, you know, the other people in town are like, what's up with these Jews, man? Why are they being so nice to the communists who have invaded our country? Then the Soviets realize they've gone too far, and they leave. Okay? When they pull back, a few days later, first German infantry units will start showing up in this town. Their job is to defeat enemy forces. Okay? Which mostly for the Poles, if you remember from the video, had fallen back around Warsaw to defend it. Okay? So they're coming in, they're encircling the city, okay, and going to lay waste to it. Okay. But this town, when the Germans show up, the Poles are like, hey, what can we do to make it easier for the Nazis so they don't, you know, they don't kill us? So the Poles are thinking. Now the Jews are scared. And the behavior of the Jews towards the Soviets kind of ticked off the Poles in that town. So some of them, and you guys, you know, there's anti-Semitic people everywhere, including town leaders, decide to approach the German army and say, look, do you want us to help us with those Jews, these Jews that live in our town? Now the infantry is kind of like, listen, that's not our job. We're not doing that. Just go away, leave us alone. Okay. Well, they were pretty insistent. And so some of the Poles took advantage of the situation and started looting their neighbors' homes, the Jewish homes. Some of the Jews tried to defend their property. Fights broke out. And a few of the Jews were killed by the Poles in their town. Well, the town leaders decided that they needed to cover up these crimes. And so they were insistent to the German infantry, we were going to help you with these Jews. And so they started rounding up the Jews. The Poles did, not the Germans. And they brought them to the town square. Now, by this time, some of the Jews are running. They're like fleeing the city, trying to get out of this town. Okay? And Poles are killing them as they're fleeing. So of the roughly 1,500 Jews in this town, 1,200 of them are brought to the town center. And again, the Germans are saying, we're not doing anything here. So the town leaders, in order to cover up their crimes, said, well, let's put them in this barn. They put 1,200 Jews in this large barn. And then they locked the doors. Then they burned it, killing 1,200 innocent people. Now, nobody really knew about this story, except for the people of Genoa. Remember, as the war goes on, of course, Germany is going to go into Russia, yes? And then eventually, the Russians are going to push the Germans all the way back to Germany. And then after the war, right, the Soviet Union will control Poland for 40 years under communist rule. Okay? Well, guys, when the Cold War ended, the Soviets opened their archives. And so researchers went in and they found the transcripts of a trial because the Soviet Union put the town leaders on trial for this mass murder. And they have the transcript from the trial. And researchers went in and found this and found out about this story. And one of those researchers was this person, Jan Gross, that wrote a book called Neighbors that goes through the whole thing and how it went down. Okay, I had to read this in graduate school. It's really hard to read. You know what I mean? It's called Neighbors. Talking about how these people lived together in the same town. They worked together. Their children went to school together. They did business together. They probably farmed together. And then one group of neighbors turned on another group of neighbors. Okay? It's a horrible story that only happens in a time of war. Like, this wouldn't normally happen. People don't behave like this unless they're scared. You understand? Okay? And that's part of the horror of war. So there's stories in the Ukraine, guys, that we don't even know about that are happening, that are just horrifying. You understand right now? Things that are happening there that are awful. Okay? So, I don't know. My message is, there's a lot more beneath the surface than we cover in the notes. You know what I mean? You can read, literally thousands of different books about what happened in World War II. As far as the Jews goes, guys, we find this time and time again. The countries that the Jews invaded, that the Germans invaded, that had Jews, oftentimes it was those local populations that helped the Germans deal with the Jewish problem. There are stories out of Lithuania, stories out of Romania, of, citizens of these countries helping get rid of the Jews. Okay. So I just wanted to share that with you as we were talking about this invasion of Poland. Okay. So we go to the next slide. So here it is. World War II is about to begin. Okay. So Poland is going to fight, as I stated on this map over here. Okay. So they're bolstered knowing that Britain and France will come to their aid if they are invaded. The problem is the British and French don't send troops to Poland ahead of time. So the Poles are on their own. In the video I showed you on Friday, it showed you pretty good about just how the Poles are going to be overwhelmed. First of all, the Germans have a much more advanced military than the Poles. Poles are still using biplanes. The Poles are still using World War I tanks. They still have cavalry on horseback. So September 1st, Poland is invaded. 2 days later, Britain and France declare war on Germany. Now, the official date that historians use for World War II is September 1st. I like September 3rd because that's when the British and the French declare war.
Which one's right on your test?
I don't have that date on the test. Okay? But it's an easy way to remember is 9339. 9339. Okay. So, and as I said, Stalin and the Soviets will invade on the 17th. Within 2 weeks, guys, of this invasion, the country is divided. So the battle for Poland lasts about a month total, a little over a month. So after much debate, the U.S. Congress is going to repeal its arms embargo, and we will start sending weapons and so forth to France. Okay? We'll start helping. So no longer will we remain neutral. We're not going to get involved, but we're going to help our friends. Okay? And this is where you get that debate, that America's first debate, where Charles Lindbergh is saying that the British can't win. Okay? And the French won't win. Okay, we know that. So, the next slide, guys, I'm going to be talking about the German war machine, okay, and a new type of warfare called Blitzkrieg, or lightning warfare, okay? And I'm going to use some pictures on this slide to kind of start that, and then I'll go to the next slide, okay? I think I might have mentioned this during one of the video clips I showed. This is a Stuka dive bomber. It's a German dive bomber, okay? First off, the German Air Force has a name. Remember, they weren't even supposed to have one under the Treaty of Versailles. Okay. So, then they built a quite advanced Air Force. Okay. In charge of the Air Force will be a guy named Hermann Goering. Now, if you ever see pictures of Hitler standing next to a big plump man, that's Hermann Goering. He's a large man, okay? Now, this bomber is extremely accurate, okay? This is a tank buster. This will destroy enemy tanks. This will destroy enemy artillery, okay? It's like the A-10 of today in our Air Force, in our Army has them, Marines have them. Okay, you guys know the A-10 Warthog? You know the A-10 Warthog? Okay, yeah, it's badass. Now listen, for our infantry, you know the soldiers on the ground, the A-10 is like angels on their backs. Okay, they protect, they destroy tanks, which will kill soldiers. You understand? They destroy artillery that will kill soldiers. And that's what these do for the Germans. Okay? Now, Blitzkrieg is lightning warfare. It's fast. Okay, so when I was at the World War II Museum in Nolens a few years ago, I picked up that poster of the tanks, World War II tanks. Okay, so those of you that have played some of the video games, you probably know about the Panzer tank and the Tiger tank, which were the German tanks. Now their new ones, what do they call these? Leopards. Leopards, that's it, yeah. So these are very good tanks that the Germans have, okay? And they're fast. Now along that, you can't probably see this very well, guys. This is a column of motorcycles with a sidecar. Each motorcycle can carry 3 troops. The guy driving the motorcycle, the guy in the sidecar, and a guy that can stand behind the driver. Okay, so it can carry 3 men. Okay, you've got tanks, armored personnel carriers, trucks that will carry troops quickly as well. This is your infantry. So you have a fast-moving infantry that goes along with the tanks, being protected by the dive bombers. With me? Okay. So that's the beginning. Mouse is over here. So if I go to the next slide, you can write down kind of some of this description of Blitzkrieg. And I'll show you some of the other facets here. Okay. So this is his new strategy. Depends on air power. Now, because of air power, you can leap over rivers. You can leap over mountain ranges and so forth. So using fast new vehicles, airplanes, tanks, trucks, motorcycles, they can strike at the heart of an enemy territory rapidly, and sluggish enemies will be overwhelmed. And this will happen all over Europe eventually. Okay. Here's the motorcycle sidecar, Panzer, and then like an armored personnel carrier. Now this is the large bomber for the Germans. It's called a Junkers 88. Okay, now in comparison to other World War II bombers, the German bomber is smaller, quite a bit smaller than what the Americans use, what the British use, what the Japanese use. And for that matter, what the Italians use, okay? Now this is a fighter plane, okay? This is a fighter. So it's a small maneuverable plane that will be used to shoot bombers down. Okay, it can also be used for strafing runs. Okay, strafing run would use your machine guns to kill troops, blow up, shoot up trains, these sorts of things. Okay, so the Junkers 88 is their heavy bomber. And because it's a little bit smaller, they can mass produce these. Now, I'm going to come back here, point some things out. Here, okay? So the 3 planes that I'm talking about right now with the Luftwaffe, okay? This is the Junkers 88. This is their large bomber, okay? Now, in comparison to, say, the B-17, which is often utilized by the United States, the B-24 and the B-25, the Junkers 88 is relatively small. The one in the middle at the top is the British Lancaster. Okay, it's a large bomber. Okay, this is a Japanese bomber, the G4M. Now this plane here would not come until later in the war. These were built in Wichita. This is the B-29. So the 17 is the Flying Fortress, the B-17. Which I think I introduced to you. Have I introduced that to you yet? No. Okay. The B-29 is the Super Fortress. Okay. And Saturday, when we were inter-squatting baseball, we were warming up, and we had a flyover. Doc flew over. Okay, it's pretty sweet. I got some pictures of it. Okay. There's only one still flying. Okay. There's about 15 or so of these still flying. Okay. Now, so here's the Junkers 88. Now, the German Stuka dive bomber, okay, the Junkers Stuka, okay, and then the Messerschmitt. This is their fighter. Okay, so these 3 planes right here really constitute the German Luftwaffe. Okay, now there are variations of the Messerschmitt. You got the ME-109, the B-109, the 110, and so forth. Okay, so these are what we're going to be talking about with the German. Okay. We'll introduce the American Air Force or Air Corps a little bit later, okay? And of course, the Royal Air Force as well. Okay? They're going to play a big role in all of it. Okay, so one more slide on Blitzkrieg. Okay, so lightning from the sky, As I mentioned, guys, air power makes it possible to leap over standing armies, coastal water barriers. You can strike at the heart of a defenseless nation. There are not air defense systems in most of these countries yet. So, you know, like when the Chinese flew the balloon across the United States last month. We don't have air defense systems in the United States to shoot those down from the ground. We do have one on top of the White House, okay? The White House has air defense systems, but we don't have those located around the country, okay? And Poland did not have any air defense systems, so you can't shoot these planes down from the ground. Now, the British, they will. Because they recognized after World War I that, you know, if there's another war, planes will be flying over Britain to attack us. And so the British built an air defense system. And it's quite effective. Okay? But the Poles didn't have this, and the French didn't have this. The Russians didn't have this air defense system. Okay? So you're defenseless to these bombers unless you can shoot them down with your fighter planes. And the Polish fighter planes are not going to be able to do that because the German fighter planes will shoot down the Polish fighter planes before the Polish fighter planes can shoot down the German bombers. You guys with me on this? Because the German planes are better. And their pilots have been flying since 1936 in the Spanish Civil War. They have experience. They already have aces. So Poland's in trouble. So what happens is you come in with the heavy bombers. What's the first target you're looking for as a heavy bomber to take out in enemy territory? You might want to take out munitions factories. What? Airfields. You want to take out their planes while they're on the ground. You can take out their planes while they're on the ground, then they can't go up and shoot you, and you have air superiority, both literally and figuratively. You have air superiority. And in World War II, guys, air superiority is king. Now, by the end of the war, the Russians are going to figure out how to nullify air superiority, okay? And in wars that we fought in Vietnam, wars that we fought in the Middle East, those people figured out how to neutralize air superiority. How do you do that? Huh? Guerrilla warfare. You bring the enemy in close, so the air power can't tell where your people are and where their people are. So you don't use it. Does that make sense? You hug the enemy. This is what the Russians will figure out. Okay. So until that day, guys, you control the skies. You got a chance of winning. Okay. All right. So, guys, like I said, I went to the National World War II Museum. Let's see, 4 years ago. Okay. And it's in New Orleans. It started as the D-Day Museum. And then they expanded it and just made it the National World War II. You guys know where the National World War I Museum is. Kansas City, right? You guys been in the National World War I Museum? It's 3 hours away. It's freaking really nice museum, guys. You would enjoy it. Even if you're not a huge history buff, you would enjoy it, okay? All right, so a couple things. German motorcycle And I want to talk about this because when I saw this gun, when I walked in, I was like, holy cow, they have a German 88 millimeter flat gun in the museum. This is one of the most important weapons of World War II. Okay? Let me read this to you, okay? Talk about air defense systems. This is why this was created. The 88 millimeter flat gun is one of the most famous guns of World War II, originally designated as an anti-aircraft gun. The flat trajectory, high muzzle velocity, and range of this gun also made it one of the best anti-tank guns of the war. Allied soldiers faced and feared this gun in every campaign in North Africa, the Mediterranean, and European theaters. It was responsible for a great number of casualties suffered by both tank and air crews. Of the 88 millimeter gun, the late Stephen Ambrose, who wrote multiple books on World War II, said those 88s became a legend. It was said that more soldiers were converted to Christianity by the German 88 than by Peter and Paul combined. So guys, what a flat gun does, guys, is it sends a shell. Now a German, you guys know Mr. Menestrena, the sub? Okay, you know he's a World War II geek, nerd, like collector of all things World War II. He's got one of these 88 millimeter shells, okay? It's about this big around, and it's about that long, okay? And what you do, because of the high muzzle velocity, you can send that shell up 20,000 feet in the air, and it blows up, and it sends out shrapnel or flak. If that shrapnel or flak hits the engine of your airplane, it destroys the engine. If that flak goes into the cockpit and kills the captain and the co-pilot, the plane's coming down. Okay? So the Germans used these in great numbers. And then like later in the war, near the end of the war, in the Battle of the Bulge in the forest, I'll talk about these 88s because the Germans will get these shells to explode in the trees. And when you like just, explode something like this in the trees, it sends out shards of wood or splinters of wood at high velocities, and those are going to penetrate human flesh. As we will have 80,000 casualties in the Battle of the Bulge, which lasts about 2 months. 80,000 casualties, mostly because of this gun. If you're fighting in the desert and one of these shells explodes near you, okay, it's not going to be good. All right, so I just wanted to show you this weapon, talk about what anti-aircraft guns look like, and what flak is, okay, because it's going to be an important part of this war. Okay, now, time we get out of here? All right, we're going to do this. That's Churchill, my friend. Yeah, you should ask for forgiveness.
Yeah, I know.
Very different men. I love what that video said, what Churchill said to Chamberlain. Strong indictment of the Munich Pact. You think you have avoided war, the war you will have. All right. Check this out. Let's roll. Right. Nope, I'm off. Help me label this map. Great Britain, UK, capital. Paris. Belgium, capital. Brussels. What's this? Netherlands, capital. Amsterdam. Luxembourg. Capital. Capital. Berlin. Sorry, my map's a little off. Okay, Warsaw. What's this? Capital. What's this? Good? Good? Everybody knows where they are in the world. Okay? What's this body of water right here? The English Channel. At its narrowest point, 20 miles. Okay? Now, we start here with the Nazis. Okay? They're going to annex Austria. Yes? Don't have to fire a shot. France and Britain are going to hand over the Sudetenland to Germany with the Munich Pact, correct? 6 months later, it will take the rest of Czechoslovakia. Okay? September 1st, 1941, 1939, September 1st, Germans take here, Russians come here. Okay. So, by early October, Poland has been defeated. For the next 6 months, they call the Phony War. There will be no fighting in Europe. Hitler has to make a decision. Now, he's always said that he wanted Lebensraum, living space, living room for the German people in the East. He just got them a little bit, but the ultimate goal is to defeat Russia. Yes? But he hasn't taken care of Western Europe yet. So over the next 6 months, he's going to use those highways that he built in the 30s, called the what? The Autobahn. Okay? Now, I've driven on the Autobahn. It is nice. Okay? It's big. Like, they have a lot of lanes. There are speed limits. Okay? But they are fast. I rented a little Peugeot rental car. Okay? And I was going, I don't know, 120 kilometers per hour or something like that. And I'm getting my doors blown off by BMWs, Mercedes, just. Okay. Nice. Yeah. So anyhow, he's going to use those highways to move his army back from Poland to the Western Front. Okay. 6 months. No fighting. That's the Phony War. Okay. Now Britain is trying to prepare for war. So Britain starts sending troops to France. Okay. The French, after World War I, never wanted this to happen again. They've been invaded by Germany twice, the Franco-Prussian War, and then World War I. So the French built a 350-mile line of defenses, the Maginot Line, M-A-G-I-N-O-T, Maginot Line. Now, this thing, guys, is pretty cool. Most of it's built underground. They have turrets that pop up out of the ground to destroy oncoming tanks. They actually have a mini railroad system underground to move troops from one part of the line to the other. And the French believe that this wall This line is impregnable, cannot be broken through. Now, also on this map, I want to draw this. So if you see a lot of dots on a map like that, what is it? Forest. The Ardennes forest. Okay, sometimes referred to as the Black Forest, but the Ardennes. Okay, now what the French didn't do was build the Maginot Line all the way to the sea. Belgium is a neutral country. Hitler would not invade a neutral country, would he?
Of course.
But anyways, he has a non-aggression pact with Belgium and Netherlands. So the French did not build the wall there. Now, in World War I, the Germans used what was called the Schlieffen Plan, named after General Schlieffen, and they invaded through the Low Countries of Netherlands and Belgium into France. Well, guess what? History repeats itself. They felt like the Ardennes was too dense of a forest, and it is a dense forest, guys. That's no lie. That you could not move an army. It's hilly, it's mountainous, there's rivers, streams that run through it. You could not move a mechanized army through this forest. Have you ever heard of a thing called German engineering? So indeed, they will go through this forest. And German engineers will blow paths through there and create pontoon bridges and everything else they need to move a mechanized army through this forest. Okay. Now the British start sending troops over. At home, the British are concerned that the bombs are going to start falling. So they're going to start sending their children out of the cities to the countryside. 3 million of them. So the government of Britain will requisition estates in the countryside, you know, like Downton Abbey. Any Downton Abbey people? None of you? Downton Abbey? It's really good. I mean, I know it's a chick thing, but dude, it's extremely well written. It's got great acting in it. Okay? And I watched it with my wife. Okay? The whole thing, all the seasons. Really good stuff. Okay? But anyhow, you might have seen a different film called Narnia. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. All right? You haven't seen The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Lily? Joanna? You read it? You haven't seen that? Been out from the first minute, dude. It's like, I'm determined. I'm coming in to take a nap. You seen it? Yeah. So at the beginning of the movie, right? At the beginning of the movie, Narnia, the kids are off. You know, they're sending the kids off, right, to the estates. Well, here's the thing, guys. They started doing this in September, way back when they invaded here in September. So 6 months go by, there's no bombs falling in Britain. So the kids, 3 million of them got sent off. Women went to work in the factories. Men of fighting age went to fight. Now, this is kind of the thing, guys, with me, okay? Like, I know way too much stuff about this, about what becomes known as the Battle of Britain. Like, I've written too many papers on it. So I have a lot of information in here that I want to share with you, way more than you need to know. There's 48 million people on the island. And at some point soon, the Germans are going to throw everything they have at that island. And those stubborn Brits are going to survive somehow. Okay? So I've written papers on the military side of this, the civilian side of this, and the societal side of World War II and Britain. Okay? And so, obviously, know a lot about Winston Churchill as well. Okay? So, I will be making reference to this. Okay? But after 6 months, some of these kids start coming home. Mom and dad are gone. Mom's off in some factory working. Okay, dad's off training for war. Okay, so these kids, they're kind of left to their own. And when the war's over, a lot of their parents will not be around. Okay, they didn't survive the war. Okay, but most of the children do, which is good. Okay. What time? 25? 20? Okay. So, you guys understand the Phony War? Yes? Okay. So I put the slide back up, guys. The Germans are going to invade through the Low Countries. They will break through the Ardennes Forest, and they will break through the Maginot Line. Now, the ones that break through the Maginot Line in the forest, they shoot to the coast and then fan out and take Paris. Does this make sense? France will fall in 2 weeks. What the Germans couldn't do in 4 years in World War I, they will do in 2 weeks. Okay. I've got to talk about Denmark as well and Norway as well. Okay. But as far as this goes, well, I have this map up here. Okay. The Germans will invade here. They will use for the first time, we see this in warfare, soldiers jumping out of perfectly good aircraft. Paratroopers. So the Germans will employ paratroopers in places like Denmark, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Okay. And so that these countries will fall quickly. Remember, the fifth column is well established in these countries. The fifth column. Everybody remembers the fifth column, right? Okay. So I'll put the slides back up and get there. Okay. So today's Wednesday. All right. So what will happen, guys? Thursday, Friday, just keep going on this, okay? And then when we get back from break, I'll do a good review. Maybe write that map back up there, go through it with you again, get you back into it, okay? And we won't have long when we get back before we'll get to Pearl Harbor, okay? And a lot of that depends on how many stories I tell you about the Battle of Britain. I'll just basically spend an entire class period on that. That's okay. Okay. So you can write this down if you want. I'll get into it tomorrow. Put the map back up there. Okay. This is a remnants of the Maginot Line. Guys, you can go to France today and still see trenches from World War I and remnants of the Maginot Line on their border with Germany. I have not been that far east in France. I've been to the beaches of Normandy. I had dinner in Paris, and that was it. We got the hell out of France. Okay. Had dinner on the Champs-Elysees. Okay. Guys, this picture is published in every newspaper around the world, guys. And it scares the pants off of people. Because, you know, a few weeks from now, you can see Hitler taking a similar picture in front of London Bridge and Big Ben. And if this continues, maybe in front of the Statue of Liberty one day. Okay. This happens rapidly. So we talk about Belgium, Denmark, Netherlands, Luxembourg, parts of Norway, and France, 6 countries in about 8 weeks. Crazy, man. Blitzkrieg, man. It's crazy how fast this works. Okay? So, let us learn from history. Okay? I'll talk about some of the particulars of this tomorrow.